Anticipatory socialization occurs before you enter into any organization. It is the prequel of your organizational story, where the characters and the plot lines and the expectations are all being shaped before you've even stepped into the scene or into your first interview. Really. In this particular module, we're going to explore families and peers and cultures script what we expect to play in our careers, what that story looks like. And we'll look at the idea of fit and we'll look at the notions of what constitutes a real job and examine the communicative dynamics that direct us, sometimes unconsciously, into certain career paths. Okay. So let's begin with a foundational definition of it. Okay. So anticipatory socialization is the process of preparing for future roles and responsibilities, whether it be social, whether it be professional, whether it be organizational, before we actually enter into those roles and begin those responsibilities. It comes in two flavors. Anticipatory role socialization is the first one, and anticipatory organizational socialization. Role socialization is how communication influences our choice of a profession or an occupation or a career. Anticipatory organizational socialization is how communication influences our perceptions of specific organizations. Anticipatory role socialization is a communication process that usually begins in early childhood, and it influences our decisions about what kind of work we want to do. And those messages shape the expectations and the interest and the assumptions about different roles and professions. For example, let's say that someone grew up in a home where both of your family members were in healthcare, and you heard stories about patient care, and you heard stories about insurance, and you heard stories about research and science and medicine. And then you had a science teacher that kind of like really took an interest and was a really good teacher and really like conveyed the scientific method and rigor to you in that way. That encouraged you to go further and involving you in health clubs, for example, like that, health careers clubs. And over time, you kind of internalize that message that healthcare is a respected and meaningful path to a career. This leads you to pursue a career in healthcare. The role socialization occurs because you are somewhat shaped by what you observe in your early life about a particular occupation. And sometimes this could go the other way, right? Sometimes you could see your family doing something that they really don't enjoy, and that would move you away from it. Either way, you anticipate something about the workplace based on your early life experiences. The other one is anticipatory organizational socialization. This is how communication, often occurring during the job search or the pre-employment phase, informs our perceptions of specific organizations. Let's say that like if you're applying to like two different companies and you look at their websites and you look at the employee reviews and the various review sites that you like, and you watch the recruitment videos and you look into the history of the company and you find out that, one company emphasizes like traditional structure and sort of a corporate career advancement, ladder climbing, if you will. The other looks at, emphasizes the creativity and innovation and flexible work hours, for example, whereas other ones a little more structured work hours. Some people prefer the one with more structure. Some people can like formulate their own structure and they do better in an environment where they're allowed to innovate. And so that structure kind of can restrict people if they're in occupations. This is organizational socialization because you're forming those impressions about the organization to decide which one best matches your values and your work preferences, even before setting foot in the workplace. So focus of role socialization is on an occupation or a profession in general, whereas the focus on the anticipatory organizational socialization is typically during the job search process. So who's influencing you in these two separate definitions for the role? It's mostly family, it's teachers, it's peers, it's media as well. I didn't mention media, but media is one as well. And if it's the organizational socialization, it's the company website, it's your interview, it's the recruitment brochures, it's the reviews that you read online. Those are the difference between the two of those. All right. Remember, like further back, when someone asked you, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" and your answer was, "I don't know what your answer was," because this is a unidirectional video here. But we were in class, I'd ask you what your answer was. And it may have been an astronaut, it may have been an artist, it may have been an accountant, a communication studies professor, it may have been the Pope, I don't know. But that moment kicked off your anticipatory socialization. And these early messages often come from parents, they come from siblings, they come from community members, and they come from teachers and from schools and from your peers and from the media, offering sometimes misleading and sometimes inspiring portrayals of different professions. And those inputs form that internal compass that will ultimately guide our career and our organizational decisions and later in life. You've probably heard someone say in their assessment of a career that it just wasn't a good fit or it was a really good fit. What does that mean? Well, we need to distinguish between two types of fit. Distinguishing these definitions is key just in the first few weeks of the course. Knowing that a person job fit is asking the question, does your skill match the role? And the person organization fit is the other one. This refers to whether your values align with the culture. From a management standpoint, having the right person fit in the role that they're in is a huge benefit for the unit overall. But having the wrong person in there causes a lot of issues, probably depending on what the role is. The management objective of matching the best candidate with an available position is the purpose of person job fit. We'll call it PJ. So PJ is regularly leading to excellent employee work attitudes and job performance typically. And it focuses on that match between the employee and the job requirements. Okay. If you have a set of skills and they match the job, great. You've got high PJ. For PO or person organization, this concerns a match between the employee and the organization's values. So not always explicitly stated, right? But when an organization's recruitment and selection process favors, then the assumption is that the new members can be taught and introduced to the specifics of the job that they don't know. If they don't fit into the organization's culture, then they may be more inclined to leave. This is what I mean by the values of it. Don't get caught up in the word values. What I mean is like the organization's culture. What is it? What is it like? Is it more like we were talking about? Is it more structured? Is it more flexible? Does that match the goals and does that match your work style? When you think about that from the organization's perspective, improving the recruitment process can involve three factors. There's three factors to consider: objectives, strategies, and activities. Objectives are the recruitment objectives. These include more than just getting good applicants. They include involving the determination of how many positions need to be filled and how wide the applicant pool is desired and so forth. Was it an inside hire, right? Or are you going to post it on Indeed and find someone that actually puts in an application there? Or are you looking for someone that is in-house? Those are some objective aspects and issues. Strategies is when you choose where to promote it, where you choose to advertise, to draw in the right candidates, and what to decide whether to emphasize company image or job specifications. And those are two examples of strategies: company image and job specifications. And then finally, we have activities. And activities is the recruitment that includes deciding when and where the recruitment activities will occur, essentially. Company websites, trade journals, regional publications, general employment sites, websites, Indeed, a few examples of the venues to post and to advertise the position. And also, of course, participating in job fairs in the community or with with placement centers at certain colleges and where interviews are then held there. These are examples of recruitment tactics, the activities aspect of it. The preferred recruitment source is not mentioned so far. This is referrals from current employees. Although the research results are not entirely consistent on this, in general, it is strongly suggested that employees are hired due to referrals, to networking through current employees, and they're more satisfied and have lower turnover rates as a result than those that are gained from other methods. That is a good introduction to anticipatory socialization.